Okay, so here we are. I've opened up Photoshop. You'll notice that it's the little blue square here, PS, Adobe Photoshop. And you might get a different window the first time you open the program up. I'm not really sure, but it shouldn't be too difficult. You're basically going to be opening up a file I'm creating for you, so that's not too big of a deal. We'll talk about creating new files starting with our next assignment. Okay, so using the two files that I've given you, we're going to start with one of those, and we're also going to open up an image that I've downloaded here so I can explain to you a little bit about how Photoshop works. Let's turn off grid. Alright, so this is a cute photo of a puppy I found. And this is just like any other photo that you will find on the internet, right? It's like every photo on the internet. It's like every photo on your Facebook and pretty much everywhere else. All of these photos are made up of what are called pixels. Photoshop is a pixel-based program. And if you don't know what pixels are, they are basically really tiny squares. And each one of those squares is assigned a specific color. So every square is one singular color. And then you add up a bunch of tiny squares, microscopic squares essentially, and it makes one large image. Okay, so this image right here is made up of thousands of tiny little colored squares. And we can see that in Photoshop really easily by using our zoom in tool and just zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. And the closer we get, the more you see that all this is a grid of tiny colored squares. Okay, the really nice images, for instance, if you have a fancy new iPhone and a fancy new iPhone with a fancy new camera, however many megapixels that is, the more megapixels your camera is, the more pixels every photo has, right? So a photo that is really, quote, high quality these days digitally is going to be a photo that has a higher resolution. And by resolution, they mean more pixels per inch, okay? Or more pixels overall, meaning a larger image overall. So we're going to talk about resolution. We'll talk about resolution today, actually. So this image is 72 resolution. Resolution is pixels per inch. So for every inch, you can see the ruler up here, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, so that's an inch right there. So an inch square has 72 pixels, which isn't a whole lot. The way most of the images on the internet are going to have this standard 72 resolution, but the higher quality images are going to be, instead of 8 inches by 6 inches, they're going to be more like 24 inches by 20 inches. So essentially they have the same number of pixels per inch, they just have more inches with which to use those pixels. So overall they have exponentially more pixels. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Essentially what you're looking for when you make imagery, when you find imagery to use in Photoshop, is a photo that either has the most amount of pixels, right? Whether it be resolution or whether it be size, you want an image that has a lot of pixels, because the more pixels you have, the higher quality that image is going to be. Okay, that being said, what we are going to do is we're going to open up this. Now this is the file you're going to be starting from. It's called busgrid.psd. I mentioned it in the assignment. And when you open it up, it's going to look just like this. Now it opens up at what I would consider full size. This is what the program calls full size. And it's very small. And the reason for that is because it is 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Now what that means is that it is very, very small. Okay? This normally would be a huge problem because you're not going to be able to create anything in Photoshop of any kind of significant quality with an image that's this small, that has this few amount of pixels. It's only 250 pixels. So that would normally be a problem if you were painting anything of any kind of photorealistic quality. But since we're doing actual pixel portraits, it benefits us because what it allows us to do is zoom way in and see literally every single pixel. Okay, so now when we zoom in, you saw me change. I go into View. You can do this if you'd like. It helps me a little bit. Under the View drop-down menu, we can go to Show, and then right here to Grid, and that will turn on and off this this visible grid right here. This is not drawn into the actual file. So this is just a sort of invisible thing that's here that helps us. It's not actually there. It won't be there in the final product is what I'm getting at. So now that we have this, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize, basically for the entire time of this project, we're going to utilize just the pencil tool to draw. Now we could start with the brush tool, which seems the most obvious because that's the painting, typical painting and drawing tool. But the problem is that if we bring it down, it is not going to be, well, it's not painting for some reason. It's not going to create for us the pixels that we want, right? So essentially already it's drawing on what are called subpixels, which we don't even need to worry about. But it's also giving us a sort of a blurred edge because that's what the paintbrush tool does. We don't want that. We want the pencil tool, because what that's going to do is allow us to paint specifically 1 pixel squares. Okay, now when I click on the pencil tool here, it may be set to the brush tool by default. Okay, so if it is, what you're going to want to do is go over here, click on the brush tool. Okay, click and hold. You'll get a flyout menu here, and you go to pencil, and now it'll switch over to pencil tool. Once you do that, you're going to want to come up here. This is your tool options menu, or tool options bar, excuse me. And this shows you that you're in the pencil. This right here shows you what brush you have active. So it may start at something like this. Now that's fine, but that's not what we want. That's way too big, obviously. So what we're going to do is go up here, turn it down all the way to 1 pixel. We're going to be painting 1 pixel at a time. Now our grid's actually kind of crummy. I don't know why it did this, but let's turn that back off because that's not working like the way we want it to. Okay, so this is how we're going to be drawing. You're going to start, by drawing, maybe your right. So maybe that's the beginning of your face. So this is the framework. We're just laying down some framework here. Neck gonna come out here. Shoulder. Okay, bam, nailed it. First try. All right, and from here we're just gonna build on that. So how do we do that? Well, we're gonna keep with our pencil tool. We're gonna keep with our 1 pixel, and we're just going to change the color. The color options are over here. We're basically going to always be using foreground color when we're using the pencil tool. The foreground color is always the box that's in the front, so this white box. And you can see once we click on that, it brings up the color picker, and then we can go and pick whatever color we want. So I can try and find, like whatever I think my skin tone might be, which is, who knows, it's probably not quite that, but whatever, we'll go with that. And then I can come in here and say, okay, I want the light. The light's going to be coming from the top right-hand side. Whoops. So I picked the wrong box for color there. Let's go back and do that again. There we go. Okay. And now I'll come back up here and I can paint in. I say, color is going to be coming from, light's going to be coming from the top right. There it is there. And now I can come back in and paint in my highlights wherever I think they might be. If you're curious about where you think your highlights are, look in the mirror. Set up, go into the bathroom or wherever you have a mirror, look at the light source, or put a light source in the same place that you want it to be in your drawing, and see where the light hits your face, and try to mimic that in this very specific, simplistic way. I can now go in and pick a darker color, right? And then you're just gonna keep filling in however you feel is natural the rest of your face. And of course, you can come back at any time and modify all of these pixels. Like if I say, I don't like these pixels right here, they should be a different color, I can go back and bring them back to that color. I can actually erase them. I'm not even going to show you the eraser tool because you just paint over it. We don't really need the eraser tool quite yet. So stick with the pencil tool and pick your colors here. You'll notice over here that we have the layers palette. Layers is super important in Photoshop. We're only going to be using essentially 3 layers, maybe more if you want to get real extravagant with your animated GIF, but we're only going to be using 3 layers for our GIF, and each layer will become a frame in our animated GIF. Okay, so when you create your first drawing and you finish what you're happy with it, you finish it, what you're going to do is create a duplicate of that. So you're going to click and drag it to the new button, make a new version, and now essentially we have 2 of them. Okay, you're not going to drag it around like I am. I'm just showing you that there's 2 of these. And then the second one is where you'll add whatever you're going to add, right? So for instance, if you want to add your eyeball getting weird. So that's a 2-frame animation. Now I'm doing it by hand, but I'll show you how to animate it later. But and that's how you're going to create your 3 layers. You're going to create 2 copies of the original layer and then modify those 2 copies accordingly to create your 3-frame animation. Okay, a couple of other things. We're going to just be learning the absolute basics here. We don't need to know a lot of tools for this, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys with a brand new program with a ton of options. So we need to know the pencil tool, the color tools here, the zoom tool and the hand tool are our navigation tools. Zoom tool is right here, and obviously if you click on it, it zooms in. If you press the option key and click, it zooms out. So that's just an easy way to navigate in and out. And the hand tool just moves things around. So the hand tool is really beneficial if, for instance, you're like in here like this, and you want to use the hand tool to move up here or wherever, right? All right, another thing. As you're painting this, you're going to be building up colors that are specific to your image. So for instance, I've already created these 2 colors that are, maybe the exact tone of my face, or at least the tones that I want to use, right? Now, they're not over here anymore. So how do I get back to them? Well, you can do it a few ways. The easiest way is probably to use the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool is right here, and you can click on that and then hover over anywhere in the image and click on a color. So let's click right here, and you'll notice that it drops that color right here. And that's beneficial now because I can go back to my paintbrush and then come back here and start painting. Okay? The other way to do it is to open the swatches panel here. And the swatches panel has a bunch of preset swatches in it. And it also, you have the ability to take colors that you're using and drop them into the swatches panel to save for later use. So these up here are the last handful of colors that I've used. And here's the color that we just painted. And I can take this and I can click and drag. Well, let's try from over here. Nope. Well, there we go. So what it's doing, I click this little new sheet of paper down here. This is something that changed in the new version. This new button right here, and basically it asks us what we want to take, and it's taking this foreground color. Okay, so if you want to make a swatch, you can just click, bring the color to right here, come over here, click on your new, click OK, and it will drop it into the swatches. And now I have these two ready to go. So at this point, if I ever lose these, all I have to do is come back in, click on my swatch, and I'm ready to go. All right. That is essentially all we're going to learn right now. Very, very simple. That's all we need to know for our first assignment, with the exception of the logistics of saving our files, which is also very simple. I would recommend saving every half hour or so. These computers, Photoshop is a really big, complicated program, and occasionally it will just lock up your computer. It's rare, but it does happen. And if it does, you're going to lose everything from that point backwards until the last time you saved. So the more frequently you save, the better off you're going to be. And the way we do that is by going to File, Save As, and then here's our save window. We're going to call it whatever we want to call it. Busgrid is fine. .psd. You want to make sure that it will append this this extension by itself. Do not get rid of that. Make sure that it always has that .psd at the end of it. Okay. Title it whatever you want to title it, but make sure it always ends with .psd. PSD references a Photoshop document. Okay. And then save it to wherever you want to save it, desktop or wherever else. And that's it. So click Save. Don't want to replace that, so we'll save it to the desktop. And that's it. Here it is. So the next time we double click and open that, it'll open up in Photoshop, and it'll have all of our layers inside of it. Alright, so that is the basics. Pretty simple. Obviously, the most difficult part is just going to be the actual drawing itself. What I would recommend doing is, like I said, go into the bathroom, take a look into the mirror, look at your face. You will probably find that this drawing will be a little bit easier if you have your face a little bit off-center. And by off-center, I mean turned in some way, or something along those lines. If you're drawing your face straight on, it actually becomes a little bit more difficult to draw. It's also a little bit less interesting visually, so consider that as you're working. But yeah, so take a look at your own face, really kind of look at it, break down the light, the darks, all that kind of stuff, and then come in here, do what I did, just get a real basic idea of things, and then slowly whittle down until you get it exactly the way you want it. All right, and the rest I will show you guys in class.